We're really lucky to have a person returning to share her story. Michelle O'Neill is with the U.S. Army, still serving. She is an emergency room nurse. She's currently at Fort Belvoir. She's about to go to Fort Polk. She is part of a military couple, which is a gift unto itself. She also was here telling her story immediately post-deployment a number of years ago, almost 8 years ago, and how wonderful to have her coming back at the next chapter of life. And we're so grateful because in some ways, Lenny Enzel, her colonel, was who roped her in 2011, and this is how she began to be connected to this place, a woman who served during the Vietnam era, who trained a lot of the next generation of nurses. So how great to have Michelle O'Neill back with us again to share her story.
Good morning. Oh, I always feel like I'm standing very much too close to the microphone at all times. I'm not normally an uncomfortable speaker, but there's something about coming here that just overwhelms me. First off, I want to so much thank Marsh for the hospitality. The way I got involved here was through Colonel Lenny Enzel, who's now retired. She's a fabulous person. She was my chief nurse when I was a brand new second lieutenant at Fort Bliss, Texas. And she encouraged me, allowed me to be flaky. I changed what I wanted to be when I grew up as an Army nurse at least 3 times, and I ended up being an emergency room nurse. But it's so fabulous the way that the women that came before me and came before us have opened their hearts and opened their arms to all of us that serve now and are currently serving or just recently stopped serving, and let us be a part of this, because I can't even think of the words to explain how that makes me feel. But thank you so much for inviting me to come. I want to thank everyone who's here today. I'm humbled to be here to speak in this beautiful monument. It's an honor to be here among heroes who have served. A quick aside from my planned story, I was standing here talking to a gentleman who had been injured in Vietnam in 1968, and we got to talking, and he told me this little story about how he was in the hospital on Christmas, and he was the only American in the hospital, and he said, "I'll never forget my nurse. Her name was Carrie O'Neill." And I thought that was amazing, because to remember someone's name for that long, of someone that you who took care of you, and then it was almost kismic, because I said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this," and I pulled out my ID card and I showed him my last name, and we both kind of chuckled, and he said, "Well, it's been a very interesting day." But I just thought, like, those are the kind of connections that you make here. Is you come, everyone automatically feels like they are somehow part of this family, whether you are in the military or you're not in the military. There's something about this whole space that makes everyone feel very connected and very much a part of the United States, I think. And like I said, I also want to give a special thanks and all my love to Colonel Enzel. She's been an amazing mentor for me, and now a friend. Since she's retired, it's legal now. And she's the reason I'm here today telling you another one of my stories. I've tried to think about what I wanted to talk about, because I already told kind of my Army story earlier. So I'm just going to touch briefly, just so you know where I'm coming from. I came in the military when almost right out of high school. I kind of thought I knew what I wanted to do. I went to college for like a semester. Didn't really do that well. Didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. That's kind of been a theme for me throughout my whole life. So I joined the Army. I was enlisted. I was a fuzzy patch before there were fuzzy patches. You know, the uniforms have changed. I don't know how many times since I've been in. And I came in the Army in 1989 as a dental assistant. And I served, got out for a break in service, went to college, almost finished a degree again. Kind of had some doubts about what I wanted to do. I came back in the Army as a medic, because back then there weren't any wars going on. This is like in 1999. They said, well, your prior service. So these are the 3 things you can do. You can be a cook, you can be a mechanic, or you can be a medic. And I said, well, I don't cook that good yet, although that's changed. I definitely don't know how to work on cars and other things, so I became a medic. And it served me well. I was a medic for several years. I was blessed to be allowed to apply for and get accepted for the Army Enlisted Commissioning Program, which is a program specifically to take people that are currently in the Army who have an interest in nursing and allow them to complete their degree. I went to college in Hawaii Pacific University, not bad. I'm from Iowa. I thought about going there for about 10 seconds, and then I hopped on a plane and went to HPU. Made a lot of great friends there, got commissioned as a second lieutenant, and went to Fort Bliss. I've had a wonderful career of being able to take care of the nation's heroes and their family members. I've been deployed multiple times, not that that makes you any better or worse than anyone else, but just to say that I've been using my skills that I finally flaky found as an emergency room nurse, and I've been to Iraq, I've been to Afghanistan. I just returned actually from Afghanistan in December. So one thing I've learned through my career is, as an Army nurse, that one of the most important things we do, it doesn't have anything to do with doctrine, it doesn't have anything to do with your career path, it has to do with taking care of people and taking care of your patients and doing whatever's needed to do that. Oh my goodness, is that okay? I struggled a lot about what I wanted to talk about with you today. There's things that I'm not ready to talk about. There's things that I don't know if anyone would be interested in. So I came up with this little story that I thought maybe you'd enjoy. In keeping in the line of taking care of people, as a nurse, you automatically are thinking, okay, the story is going to be about going and taking care of wounded soldiers and Marines and airmen, which I've done. But my story today is about a different kind of care, and that was my most recent deployment was Afghanistan. And I was in a forward surgical team. It's called an FST. What we do there is we kind of follow the battle. You're not there, but you're kind of closer, so that if people get hurt, you're there to do emergency surgery or emergency care for those individuals. And then a helicopter, these wonderful dust-off people come and swoop down and pick up your patients and take them to further echelons of care with more assets. So as part of this forward surgical team, it was an amazing opportunity. I got to support this very special group of individuals, the Special Forces teams and the Rangers. That was our job. And we broke our forward surgical team down into 3 smaller teams. So I was with this team within a team. Everything that we used to take care of people fit on this really cool vehicle that the SF guys, let us have, and we would load it onto the back of this helicopter called a Chinook. They make a ton of noise. They have double propellers, but they're strong enough to lift up this vehicle, and we'd go. And they basically would put in an order, kind of like when you go to McDonald's, they get to have it their way. They're like, we'd like to have this FST with this number of people, and oh yeah, throw in an extra surgeon, or we want the ER nurse this time, not the OR nurse. Whatever they wanted, we gave it to them. So the first part of the deployment, I traveled around doing what they wanted, going different places, going back to our home base where we were kind of refitted and located. So the second part of our deployment, though, we were told, you guys are great, but we're going to take your little slice. We're going to add, again, McDonald's, this couple of things, and we're going to send you out here, and you're going to be stationary for an undisclosed amount of time. Ended up being the rest of our deployment. And oh yeah, we're going to open up a camp, and you're going to do it with all this small number of people. So we have an SF team, we have a Special Forces team from another country because everything's coalition, and we have all their enablers, which are like the infantry uplift guys. It was great. So less than 100 people get there. We have to do everything. We're trying to figure out, where are we going to go to the bathroom? Where are we going to, take a shower? Where are we going to set up? Where are we going to live? So, the SF guys are so they're so great at just taking nothing and making it into everything. Plus, they get a lot of support. So in no time at all, we had a place to stay. We had this building set up. I wish I could show pictures. We'd set it up like a little mini surgical area, and I had my own little ER bed. It was fabulous to take care of patients there. And I was sitting in the chow hall one day, and one of the team guys comes up, and he's like, "Hey, Miss Michelle," which is what they, everyone's on first names. No one's going to call you by your rank. "Hey, Miss Michelle, I've got a question for you." And I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" I thought it was going to be medical. And he's like, "Well, we know you're a nurse, but we're really tired of eating MREs. And we were hoping that you might agree to open up the DFAC for us, because we figured of anyone on the camp being a nurse, you would at least make sure we didn't all get screaming diarrhea." And I laughed, and I was like, "Well, that's true, but I don't know anything about running a DFAC, and I certainly don't know anything about feeding 100 people. And they're like, "You can do it." They were desperate, I'm sure. "You can do it. You can work it out, but we want you to do this. Would you please do it?" And I said, "Well, of course, I'm going to do whatever you ask." And it didn't hurt that they took the one SF guy that looked like an Abercrombie model to come over and talk to me about it. So I was like, of course, I'm going to do whatever I can do to help you all. So my story really is that I became the caretaker of not just people's bodies, because we really, didn't, it wasn't like we were seeing patients every day. We saw patients who didn't feel well, patients for sick call. But it was an opportunity to take care of people in a really super basic way, like feeding their bellies. And I found also a really great way, since I had to be there all the time, a really great way to get to keep a finger on the pulse of how everyone was doing. Because some of the team guys had been in these atmospheres and environments and in combat so much, but then you have these 19-year-old uplift kids, or you have someone who's a fueler and he's there all by himself without any of his support, element. They just kind of get plucked out and put somewhere. So it was a really basic way to be able to get to take care of people. And one of the funny things that happened, I thought, was that, so we all had to volunteer to kind of help me to make the food every day, because I couldn't do it all myself. So this one group came in of my medical people, and they said, "We're going to make breakfast, we're going to make this, we're going to make that, and we're going to make grits." I know how to make grits the best, right? So I said, okay. So my sergeant gets in there, he starts making these grits, and he takes a bottle off the shelf. It says pepper, but when you work in a place where you don't have stuff, he probably should have tasted it, because he added all this, what he thought was pepper. It ended up being cinnamon to the grits. It was terrible. What made it super funny is that apparently cinnamon is one of those things that is very much used a lot in Afghan cooking. And so, the Afghans were very upset when they came back from their little holiday to help us cook. You used all our cinnamon, and it's like, well, it said pepper. They're like, you stole all our cinnamon. So I had to go find some more, ask people to send me more. But getting an opportunity to feed people's souls and not just take care of their bodies was probably one of the coolest things I've done so far, is being an Army nurse. I hope to have several more, opportunities to continue to serve. I've been in now for 21 years plus. Like Mark said, I'm getting ready to go to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which should be an adventure. That's where they do a lot of the training for the people that are going downrange. So it's going to be another great opportunity. I just thank you all for coming. Thank you for letting me share a little bit of my story. And I hope that you have a beautiful day.